All right, that's a large audience. It looks like everybody stepped out for coffee, but I promise you this is going to be the best event of the day, the best session of the day, except Professor Roth's. But besides that, it's going to be most likely the best session of the day. It's a great topic that, kind of Sumit and I put together, which is something that I think all of us talk about a lot internally, which is chatbots. Is it the future of Froth? Which is it really going to do all the things that we've spoken about, or is it just a fad that's going to go away? So quickly, maybe 30 seconds for introductions. My name is Aakrit. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Haptik. We run a chat-based commerce company where the flagship app is a personal assistant app where you can chat, get things done, and make purchases.
Hi, I'm Umakant. I'm a founding partner of Pi Ventures. It's a fund dedicated to AI companies, launched along with Manish Singhal. Very quickly, I built one of the early chatbot companies out of India in 2009-10 and learned a lot as a result of that. So, I think that's the reason why they've got me here. So I will try to see, recently as one of my friend told me that, I've crossed over to the dark side. So I'll try to present perspective from the dark side as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Sachin from niki.ai. We are sort of trying to build, at least from a persona perspective, we are building a shopkeeper that can help you sort of buy anything that you want. And yeah.
Hi, Ravi from active.ai. We build a platform for banks which enables them to interact with the customers across bots, VR, voice, and a whole bunch of channels.
Hi, my name is Pratyush. I used to run a company called as MagicX, which help people buy stuff with the help of completely automated bots. As of now, we have pivoted more into a service, like a bot creating company for specific verticals.
Great, awesome. So just to set the context a little bit about, future of Froth, back when sort of Haptik started in 2013, there was two companies in the world that were trying to do anything in the chat-based space, or at least on the B2C side. Then towards the end of 2014, there was 8. Then Magic happened. By Magic, I mean there was this app that launched in San Francisco, which was called Magic, which promised you getting everything except a tiger. And post Magic, middle of 2015, there were 75 companies only in India trying to build chat-based, shopping services or assistant services. And now we're early 2017, and I think there's 3 of us or 4 of us here, and then maybe 2 or 3 others in India left. So we're back down to, let's say, 5 or 6, which is why the entire debate of, look, is this going to actually become a real business or not? So, great starting point over here would be Pratyush, because, you were part of the journey. You kind of, were part of the range of companies that started, betting on this space. And then you kind of, pivoted or rather stopped doing the B2C service. And a lot of, let's say, the public perception of why that happened is because it does not work, or because the chatbot service doesn't work, it just doesn't end-to-end do anything. So we'd love to share if A, that was actually what happened, and B, anything that you could have done different, to actually make this a service.
So let me give you some context about what we started off, what was the big, hairy, audacious goal. Our thought was, let us build a service, something similar to, let's say, Google. Google is great for like one-time transactions. You ask, what is the weather? Good answer. But if you ask a conversational question, which could potentially have different pathways for each subsequent question, Google is not the best to do it. So our thought was, can we, through tech, powered with machine learning and subsequently AI, have something which was great at conversational responses leading to conversational commerce, right? So there are a few nuances which we realized. I mean, once you decouple, you see it in a better perspective. But there are a few nuances to which I'd like to share. One is that if you look at this in its entirety, machine learning is still very early stages. We have made a lot of advances in terms of deep learning and how to take results and make sure that there are much more relevant responses. However, a lot of it will require, when you approach it from a generic problem, like the way that we did for Magic X, where you could come and ask us about anything from shoes to, where can I get a haircut to flight, etc. The bigger the range of problems is, the more, in degrees, in order it becomes much more complex. The technology for that, for building, like one of my co-founders, as you know, was with IBM Watson for the longest time, worked on deductive computing. So the challenge for this was really huge, and what we realized was that in order to be better at it, because it's machine learning in a sense, it goes better over time, you need to have lots and lots of data. As a startup, especially like a seed-funded startup, it's not only about funding, but as a small startup, you don't have access to that kind of data. So what my maybe more matured point of view for a consumer kind of play, for like a Google kind of play, is that this will become interesting, but it'll become interesting for people who have like a fire hose of data flowing through them, which is, let's say, the Googles or the Facebooks of the world. You could obviously game data or buy the flow of data, but that would require enormous amount of capital backing you, which is also not the case in India. That was kind of the logic, the scientific logic of us not going on the the broad consumer-facing route. What we realized also was that once you constrain the problem, it becomes much easier to address. And if you partner with people who have a lot of information flowing in that constraint set, it is easier to build bots, which is what we're trying to do right now.
Got it. So that's a good segue into, sort of things that Niki and Sachin are working on. They are not two people, by the way. Niki is the company and Sachin is the founder. Anyway, so Pratyush said that the problem was data. Problem was, to a certain extent, let's say, capital, because to build out that kind of an open-ended system, you need capital. And let's say, data. Both, let's say, Niki and Haptik, right, and would love to get your thoughts, are now at a stage where we are doing thousands and thousands of transactions per day, right? So as a startup, as a seed-funded startup, or as a startup that has limited resources, how are you guys able to figure it out? At least get here, not figure it out, but at least get to this point.
Sure. So, okay. So I think when we started attacking the problem back in June 15, the major problem that we saw in the existing set of bots, and believe me, as not truly excited about chat commerce as I was about building an AI, the major problem that we saw when we started working on the problem, on the statement, was that most of the existing bots that existed, the so-called Cortana, Siri, and the likes, they were not able to sort of drive in-depth conversations, right? And the context in the conversation was very, very little. And that's why inherently, if you're trying to address a problem which is multi-input, for example, if you're trying to buy or let's say book a bus, a problem which is as simple as this, it requires multiple inputs during the conversation. You cannot expect a user to sort of give you all the inputs starting from source, destination, date of travel, and so on and so forth during the entire conversation. I mean, in one go, you cannot expect the user to sort of give all of that information. And the way that these systems were built, they could actually just answer a question. And therefore, it was not very effective for solving conversational commerce use cases. So we started working the problem from bottom up. We started focusing on one specific problem, which is, let's say, let's try and sell a recharge plan to a user, and try to do a good job at it. And then we try to make that a back and forth conversation. And once we started attacking the problem with a very sharp focus, we sort of realized that we were able to solve for a huge variety of conversational variations, and B, we were able, because we had constrained the problem, we were actually able to sort of also at least from a user perspective, we were able to set the expectation right. So it was basically the problem that we were trying to solve were two-sided, and this is how we attacked the problem. Gradually, as more and more users came on board, we started gathering more and more data around the chats. But this is, I think, the bots where they are today, it'll probably take them another couple of years to sort of work on statistical models. Most of the existing bots will be working on rule-based models. Even us, we make use of NLP, but the core of the engine is sort of designed in terms of rules and tries to figure out which set of inputs to sort of gather, and those inputs itself, we make it statistical. Over time, what we intend to do is sort of make it, as and when we get 2 million users, over time we plan to get it to a more statistical and self-learning model. But yeah, that's how we've been attacking the problem, and that's how we see this to sort of solve this.
You know, one of the constant kind of pushbacks to that theory that I think I get a lot, and I'm assuming that you get some, and then I'm sure that you must have got it back then as well, and we'll come to the other panelists in a second, is that if you're going to build rule-based chatbots, and you're going to build it for, let's say, buying basics, things that we started out doing, how is it so different from an app? Right? Or how is it so different from, let's say, one app that you open one screen and then you enter a bunch of, it's essentially rule-based, right? Tap, tap, get it done. And that's kind of what, you know, honestly, all three of us, you were doing and we are doing right now, which is you tap, tap, and you kind of get it done. So we'd love to get some, you know, your perspective on when that question comes around that, okay, look, you know, it's fundamentally repackaging an app and putting it inside a rule-based bot. What is the reason why a user would use this versus, let's say, the standard graphical user interface app?
Sure. So just to clarify, when I said rule-based, I necessarily didn't mean that we are looking at you know, writing a small regex to sort of parse out the data from the text. But it's, so we use something, an IP that we've created, which is concept entity grammar. What we do in this is that we take a sentence. For every domain, we define rules in terms of what inputs to look for, which is sort of makes it constrained in terms of what inputs to look for in a particular domain. But the inputs themselves, those are statistical models. For example, if I say something like book a bus from Bangalore to Hyderabad tomorrow morning, you cannot build a rule-based system to identify all variations of source and destination. You cannot, actually a simple rule-based system will not be able to figure out if you just change the positioning of a text. Let's say if you say something like book a bus to Bangalore from Hyderabad, it will not be able to figure out differences between the two. Okay, so a simple rule-based system cannot work, but a hybrid model wherein you define the set of inputs for the set of rules in terms of the inputs that you need to take for every domain, and then try to, for each and every input, you try to extract that using different NLP techniques that's available. That makes it much more scalable and much more accurate.
Yeah, so we'll come back to that in a second, but let's for a second shift the focus to you know, the B2B side, the, you know, boring side, but that one that actually makes money, and talk about some of the cool stuff that you know, Ravi is doing. So you know, similar to, let's say, the B2C space, there's been an explosion of, you know, for lack of better words, of companies trying to build chatbots for brands or corporates, either to solve customer service or to solve pre-sales, or, you know, I heard one that's trying to build like a chatbot to do internal distribution and sales better. There's lots and lots of, let's say, you know, ultimately friction points within a large organization, within or communicating with their customers. And like I said, there's everybody now kind of trying to get into that. So, you know, what was kind of, when you started out, and, you know, let's put it this way, that you're probably one that has made some significant traction and you know, moved ahead with some real customers. What was the problem, and what are typically customers actually asking for? And, you know, the sum of all question, is it working?
Thank you for that. So it's very interesting. So we came from a background of over 2 decades in building banks and fintech. So that's all we understand. We understand banking, we understand fintech very, very deeply. And probably in the platforms that we have built, we may be having over 400 million customers using it across the world right now, various parts, various platforms. So we sat down actually between the 3-4 of us, we completed over 100 years in this area. So we sat down and said, listen, we built a lot of stuff, but less than 1 billion people in the industry actually have banking access today. Consumers. What would happen if you had to add another 1 billion people to the banking environment? And the answers were not looking good. Everything we knew was that anyway customer services and banking financial is a disaster. I think it's just going to go downhill, and banks won't know how to deal with it. So we said, okay, there's an opportunity to build something which enables banks to deal seamlessly with customers, more engaging, in a scale which is unlimited. And there were 3 hypotheses that we built this on. The first thing was that AI is the new UI, and this tremendous capability in compute that's available today. Machine learning is evolving, but there's a lot of applicability of that to the industry, provided you understand data models and the taxonomy and the problems of the industry and the legacy of the industry. The third thing we said was banking is going as a service, right? Banks are looking at cloud, they're looking at open APIs, they're looking at going under the hood and changing things. So what if these things happen? How do you do it? So we didn't look at bots, honestly. So we looked at a platform which actually enables banks to build a very intelligent and intuitive service which can actually help customers engage in a very seamlessly easy manner wherever they want to engage. Apps, web, voice, and everything else, right? So channels comes last, but we had a vision that we have to build that intelligence into the platform. And that's what we did. We had our domain, we had data of 20 years. That's something that I think, unless you are in the industry, you will not understand it. But that's invaluable, because for us to say, okay, this customer is a rural customer of State Bank of India, and what are the top 5 things that he's going to do now? And what is he going to do next, right? To understand that itself, if you're outside the industry, is tough. But if you're from the industry, you'll know that. And similarly, if you take it back into a bank like UBS and say, okay, how is this extremely high net worth individual going to behave now? And what is he going to ask? And what does he want to know about his portfolio? And how is he going to react next? Just the ability to understand that a little bit was there with us. And so we worked with a bunch of very smart scientists to build a platform using a lot of mathematics to enable legacy platforms in banking to become suddenly fairly intelligent. And we wrote a lot of messaging and core APIs to build that. So now we're able to deliver to banks. We're starting to roll out in quite a few countries now. And a model where banks, after they test, they're at least visualizing, okay, we pay you for the POC because we are already seeing the value of this. And then they go into production, they say, okay, we can make money on every customer, we're saving money on every customer. So bots is one such manifestation where you're able to serve customer where he is today, because traditionally if you look at banks, they always ask the customer where to come from. You come to my branch, come to my call center, come to my this. Customers exist somewhere else today. Bots being one place of them, right? Messaging. So it makes it interesting for the customer to have a dialogue where he wants to be in a bank to engage him there and bring him back in. Long way to go, but yeah, the experience is that we are able to show ROI, and that's what's helping us a little bit right now.
Yeah, so just a follow-up question on that. So the 400 million customers, sounds like an amazing number. What specific channel, and this I'm referring specifically to the bots conversation, what specific channel of bots are they engaging the maximum in? Is it? Still not.
Yeah, there you go. So where we build platforms, that was in the past. So we had data of all of that we were using for bots, right? So consumers are going to start using now services. So a lot of services on beta right now.
Okay.
Right? So I can't comment to say, very easily to say that bots are really going to take off. I believe whatever experiences we had so far, they're becoming interesting.
But when you say consumers are somewhere else, are you referring then to, let's say, a Facebook platform, maybe a website where they go to the website and other things?
So in the past, all the apps that we built or web-based solutions that we built, there we've seen a lot of traction, right? Okay. So now we're actually getting into the mainstream of what your AI will be. We've got solutions on Alexa, which we're doing for North America for a large bank. We've got solutions on voice, where we're connecting to Google APIs and doing stuff. We're working in partnership with Watson in some markets, right? So different experiences, lots and bots as well.
Sure.
We're doing it in Vietnamese with Zalo. We're doing it in Line, Thai. So we're learning as we go along because consumers exist there, so you got to serve them the way they do. Right. It's complex. It's not easy. But unless the brain behind what is directing these conversations is intelligent, it knows what the customer wants, there is no ROI in this business. Nobody's going to pay you for it.
Thanks. So coming to money and payments and, just money in general, first, Umakant would love to, it's a very dumb question, but at least I'm confused and I'm guessing some of the others might also be. When you say you have a thesis of investing in AI, what does that mean? Like, does that mean that, because AI is everywhere, pretty much, right? I'm sure there are like 20 companies here saying I'm doing AI, which they might be, right? So when you refer to, let's say, AI, is it, what does the thesis mean? And then where does chatbots fall for you?
First of all, I think Sumit deserves a lot of thanks for getting a panel like this. For a long time when we were actually doing chatbots, we imagined that in India this kind of thing would happen. So big round of applause for them actually. And coming back to that question, I think that's precisely the reason why we started this fund, is to back these edgier ideas. Otherwise, Google and Facebook can't come out of India. Despite that the talent exists, right? One of my CTO actually went on to do some of the core models for Cortana. So if Microsoft think that he's good enough, he could have been actually good enough here. But it is still tough. So I actually empathize with all of these young entrepreneurs which are actually trying to do this, because changing human behavior is actually very, very tough and very, very difficult. Anticipating is even more difficult. And what we are actually looking at is a new way of interacting with machines. We are starting with conversation. We are starting to break down the structure of whole screen that we took almost 10, 15, 20 years to learn, to something like conversational, which probably is more natural to us. And this is especially relevant as the web expand or the machines expand to actually 5 billion users from probably less than 400 million, or what he talked about. So that huge expansion is not going to come in the same way which probably happened earlier. So one, chatbots actually represent the first wave of conversational UI, and it's a big change. And it's a change for everyone. It's change for consumer, it's change for businesses, and it's change for even VCs as well. So, do give them some time to actually adopt. So that's actually number one that needs to happen. The second thing that he talked about, and I think it's quite pertinent, is the business value perspective, right? If you are able to actually generate business value. So let's actually examine that in a little bit more detail. And as I'm talking about the fund, I'm looking at the core thesis of it. We are looking at AI as a core way to actually generate business value, new business value. And how's that going to come from? So it's going to come from stuff like chatbots or conversational commerce, where you are making it accessible. Either you are making it save time in some kind of scenarios, or you are making completely new use cases possible. And especially if you look at vision, or if you're looking at machines are able to recognize things as we do, right? Like Facebook deepface actually does identify front-facing images with 97.25% accuracy, which is slightly less than 97.78, which is for a human being. And that's amazing, because what happens is that a whole bunch of new use cases come aboard. Same is happening with the natural language, which is probably a deeper conversation around chatbots. Machines are able to understand human text, human conversation, and we see a whole bunch of new interfaces will emerge out of it. We would start with chatbots. We feel that we'll go into voice bots very soon, once the speech engines pick up, and they are actually picking up really well. Probably you saw some of the, examples in Alexa and before, what they were talked about. And definitely sensing, right? The whole aspect of what we call as dark data, right? The data which was never alive earlier. Because you're putting sensors, machine can see those things. And if you get time, just take a look at movements, which actually got released by Uber just a few days back. And you can actually see how people are moving across cities. And it's amazing because this actually gives you a perspective of how machines are seeing other machines, or that whole perspective like, okay, how does the machine see, let's say, San Francisco or Bangalore, right? And it's very, very interesting. And of course, it is very new. It's very edgy and probably will have more failures than probably success. But that's the reason why we started this fund. We said we must back disruptive early stage companies which are pushing the boundaries of human evolution in some sense.
That's great. Thank you so much for starting the fund. We need it over here. Talking about sort of, again, the funding bit a little bit, I know for a fact, because, we all know each other over here, I know for a fact, at least on the B2C side, all of us have struggled, to convince sort of investors to back, particularly in the B2C side, various kind of arguments against that. One is that, okay, look, you're venturing into the Google, Facebook space. Second, about building a B2C brand. Why would someone use, why would someone, let's say, use this versus an app? So, Pratyush, just going back to you for a second, do you think that if, let's say, and, usually the answer to this is yes, but, do you think there was enough conviction that you had in the business to, let's say, run it for the next 5 years, as long as you had the resources to go do it?
Generally, being unemployed makes you very philosophical, right? So I'll tell you a philosophical answer to this. The answer is that as humans, we generally underestimate in the long term and overestimate in the short term, right? So all this hoopla about bots changing the world and all that is great, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in the next 2 years, right? I don't know what your fund life cycle is, but I hope you're betting 5-10 years down the line. So, no, the reason why I said that is because it's not about, and again, we always see it in the lens of personal experiences, which is great. But if you see it from a high level point of view, it will take its own time to evolve. There is nothing anyone can do which will change this. Technology will take its own time to evolve, right? Having said that, the more power you, or the more fuel you put in the engine, the faster it will go. But at the same time, whether business applications of it, like typically, let's say you see TCP/IP, just as a parallel example, right? It took 10 years to evolve for a company like even Google, or sorry, not even Google, Yahoo to come in. After that, 9 years later, Google came in, right? On the basis of TCP/IP. I think we are in the early stages of TCP/IP in terms of machine learning and AI today. What companies will come out? What will be an Amazon? Of course not. I don't, we can do a lot of tea leaf looking at it, but it's not going to, we cannot predict it. It's not possible. At the same time, should we be at it? Of course we should be at it, because this is, a game-changing, life-changing kind of technology basis which we'll have. So that's what my thought is.
You become smarter when you become unemployed. No, that was a great answer. I think I actually wrote a recent blog post about this somewhere, where the way I look at it is the new interface after the GUI, right? Now the GUI was 25 years back, or even more actually, 25 years back when it started picking up. And now you're talking about a revolution, let's say 30 odd years later, right? Or at least a change in consumer behavior, like you mentioned. It's not going to happen in 2, 3, 4 years, right? It's going to take time for people to realize that this is, or not for that matter, right? That this is actually a better way of doing things. Sachin, coming back a little bit on the Niki story, right? So. And this is purely from a broader perspective, that there's a bunch of bots that you've built now, right? There's a bunch of transactions that you're processing. People are coming back. There's decent repeat rate and all of that. What's your take on, what type? Have you reached that scale to figure out what type of users are mostly using this? Is it a particular demographic? Or it's too early to tell? Or then, if not, then why are people coming back and using it again?
Okay. So yes, I mean, we do have data around the usage and what kind of users typically use this. So one thing that we've seen prominently is that people uh, from the higher age group are typically more excited about this.
Exactly, same experience.
And I think a large part of this is attributed to the fact that to the simplicity of the design. And I'll just give you an analogy. Typically, my mom, for example, she doesn't know how to sort of book an Uber from an Uber app, although it's just one.
I don't think anyone's mom knows, yeah.
Right. And the challenge here is that booking an Uber is just one use case. But to really be able to sort of be digital enough to be able to transact across different apps, just understand the amount of learning that is required. You have to book, let's say, a cab. There are 4 different apps. Different apps have different offers at different times and points in time. Everyone has different menu options, different settings, different promotions page, etc., etc., etc. Now, just multiply this across domains. For example, just go to e-commerce. There are 10 different apps. Just go to, and then there are vertical apps such as Vunik, etc., etc. And again, the kind of learning that is required is tremendous. And what this entails is that someone who's not as savvy is really sort of struggling to understand how this works. And this is probably one of the reasons why the percentage of users in India who are transacting online, especially using mobile, is so less. Just less than 10% of the users who are using internet are actually transacting on mobile or the web, because of the learning that is required. Versus if we can actually empower them to sort of make it as seamless, as simple as just sending a WhatsApp, it will open up a huge market opportunity.
Yeah, pretty much a very similar experience that even we've had. We actually had one of our designers within the office, tell us that his grandmother actually booked an Uber using Haptik because she found it so much easier to go through a chat rather than look at a map. And it's actually funny how many people, it's not funny, it's the truth, right? How many people don't even, feel comfortable with maps broadly in India. Anyway, Sumit has given me a warning that time is up, but we'd love to at least take couple of questions. Or you can just shout. I'll repeat the question. Yeah.
So, compare the AI environment. Let's say environment is industry to academia. The way US or the West moves is like academia leads the industry. You will see the people like Andrew and he also doing great research in AI, followed by the Bay Area and CS. Now, what I see is the lack of that in India. Here we have a lot of people from industry doing stuff, but academia is kind of lagging behind. Now, what do you do, or what, according to you, finance and what do you do to fill this gap? Because until they have this is going to be tough for us to evolve as a AI nation.
You should meet him. Professor Roth is right here. He does work on AI. He's an advisor to Haptik, so we're merging it. Answers the question. No, I'm just kidding.
I'd just like to take a dig at it. So, by the way, we've so the question was most of the research that is happening, especially cutting edge technology work that's happening, it's happening in industry and not really academia, and how do we really bridge it? So basically, when we started this, we spent the first 6 months working with our alumni, with our alma mater, IIT Kharagpur. Professor Sudeshna actually mentored us for the first 6 months to really build to a stage where we can sort of take it up from there. So we know that academia actually plays a big role. Prior to this, I myself, the reason why I was particularly excited about this opportunity was because I used to work with academia across the world, including researchers from Harvard, Wharton, and most of the work that we did were 5 years ahead of the time. NLP was a large part of the work that we did for these academic researches. So I think I totally agree that if you have to do something which is sort of cutting edge, it has to come at least start from academia. Today, what we are especially doing is that we've collaborated with multiple universities in India, wherein we are working with their PhD students to sort of, this helps us in a couple of ways. It helps us get premium talent at much lesser cost. And secondly, it also gives them an exposure to what's happening in the industry.
Sure. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's true. And I would not like to beat around the bush, but yes, here in academia actually trails industry by 5 to 10 years, depending upon which, sector that you're tracking it. But I think that are also due to fact the industry academy relationship is quite far and sparse. And that's precisely the reason why they actually don't get like what's going to come next. So it's tough, but I think there are some younger professors which are actually coming up in this area. We are trying to also create an AI community, whether it comes from academia or companies, it does not matter. There has to be a robust AI community. Only then great startups are going to come out of it. We're doing these #chai events. If you have time, you just come over.
So let me just add to that, right? So I disagree because before this, I was a part of Xerox Park, set up the research center here in India, and incidentally funded Sudeshna's first project and all that, right? So I think there is a lot of very cool research that happens in academia in India. There is a disconnect between us, which is the entrepreneurial community, and academia, which has not been bridged by anyone. Could be chai, could be coffee, whatever. But the point is that thing needs to be bridged. But a lot of very good research, if you see a lot of papers that go out from India, and a lot of patents, especially around machine learning, AI, a lot of it comes from India. And I would not call it academia versus, I would call it like fundamental research or pure research, right? So if you see, Xerox has a research center in India, IBM has, Microsoft has, Facebook and Google are setting up smaller teams in India. So it's not that it's not happening. I think it's high time it will reach a stage where it'll have more visibility. But I think the onus is on us to reach out to see what is there and leverage like Haptik and Niki have done.
Yeah, and all jokes aside, on a very serious note, the day we signed a Kalari term sheet, 3 days later, my co-founder flew down to Chicago to meet Professor Roth and saying that we cannot do this without you, because that's kind of the same route that we took, because it's not a question of, I think, not us not being capable or somebody else not being capable. I think if we all agree this is at least a 15-year game, right? We have to get research and academia involved. So I think we all agree that there is a lot happening. It's up to us how we can leverage it best.